This is everything you could be doing wrong when you start a new world. Did you know Minecraft used to be called Cave Game? Yeah, now it isn't, so that might be why you shouldn't go caving when you're starting the game. Don't get me wrong, mining is an integral part of the game, but through the help of the 1.13 and 1.14 update specifically, we can now get a lot of loot from just villages and treasure hunting. Treasure hunting in particular is something that speedrunners use to a lot of great effects. I mean, just there alone, you can get food, iron, TNT, even diamonds. While searching shipwrecks can get boring after a while, if you spawn next to a shoreline, go check it out. Who knows, you might find a few things of iron, and now you can start caving on a much higher level. Building a house is one of the staples of Minecraft survival. But while that's true, your definition of a house can be pretty broad. So when you start out a new world, maybe don't set your sights immediately on building your dream mansion right away. And instead, if you were to wait until later game when you get things like enchantments and an elytra even, then you'll be able to fully realize your mega base and do it on a timeline that's not going to leave your hair turning gray. A bed works just as well for you if you place it in a village, as it does in a mansion, as it does at the bottom of a lake. So maybe reprioritize and come back to this step later when you've got the right stuff. And speaking of your bed, this is one chore that you don't want to put off. And really, as soon as you get yourself your first set of stone tools, you should immediately start looking for nearby sheep in the area. And if you're next to a village, even better. Truly, the easiest way to find shelter for your first night is to not have to worry about your first night at all. Even if you don't leave the bed in place for a respawn point, just having one of these on hand so you can sleep while you're exploring, that can go a long way when you don't have things like armor or shields to protect yourself. And it'll also make sure that if you found a bed in a village, that village isn't going to be a ghost town by the time that morning comes. Because every time that you're walking around a village around midnight, you're just increasing your chance of a zombie siege coming through and ruining the whole thing. Normally when I start up a new world, I'm mining 11 pieces of cobblestone, 3 for my pickaxe and 8 for a furnace. Which is a nice exercise in mental math, but that's about all it's good for. Since really when you can, you should be using things like campfires instead of furnaces. Now granted, they cook things much slower than a furnace, but they can also smelt up an infinite amount of food without having to refuel. And not to mention that if you break the campfire, you'll get all the 3 logs that you put into it back as charcoal. So even if you don't use it, you essentially found a faster way to get charcoal than having to smelt it, which could be great for things like torches or putting it in the furnace when you have ore to smelt. That way you'll be using it when it's most useful. If you build your cow farm like this, you're doing it inefficiently. And instead what you should do is you should bait your cows into a 1x1 hole like this with a hopper and a chest underneath them. So that when you continuously breed them, that entity cramming limit's gonna kick in, and after you have 24 cows in your farm, eventually it'll start to kill off the other cows and you'll have a fully functional automatic farm without even needing that big of a footprint. When you think of a tree farm, you think of oak wood. It's the most iconic, it makes sense. But really, we should be building one of these out of spruce saplings instead. For the simple fact alone that we're able to grow these up to be 2x2 spruce trees. All we have to do is place down a 6x6 square of saplings like this, and then by bone mealing diagonally along this line, we're able to make sure that all of the saplings grow up to be trees. At that point, throw something like an ender pearl up to the top, and chop your way through the stacks of wooden logs that you're about to get. It's a pretty great return. If you need sand early game, you shouldn't be using a shovel, but instead, the better solution here is to use a block of TNT. Since sand has such a low blast resistance, just igniting one of these blocks of TNT can get you loads of the stuff. And not to mention that you're able to craft the TNT from the very sand that you're exploding. But if you don't have enough luck in getting yourself gunpowder, there's plenty of structures in Minecraft that also give you TNT. Things like a desert temple trap, or even the TNT that you find in loot chests from shipwrecks. And plus, exploding's always going to be more fun than digging. I'd rather blow up the whole system than become a working stiff. You ever hear the saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure? Well, here's why you need to treasure your trash. Since while you would often throw away wooden tools as soon as you get a new better set, you'd be wasting both your time and your resources by doing that. Simply put, those wooden tools could be used as useful fuel when you're starting out with your furnace. Sure, you didn't get to use them to mine coal, but you can use them in place of it. And really, I think that means they're still fulfilling their purpose. And better yet, they'll work just as well even after they're at the minimum amount of durability. At that point, it's a no-brainer. Now, there's a classic debate about whether you build your nether portal with 14 blocks at the corners or 10 blocks without. But here's how to build a nether portal with 0 blocks. Since taking a page out of speedrunners' books, with just 1 bucket, we could easily get ourselves a fully functional portal without even needing a diamond pickaxe. After finding yourself a lava lake, preferably above ground, we can mix together the water and lava buckets that we have in our inventory to make ourselves the perfect rain to get over to the other dimension. Sure, it's not the prettiest, and maybe not even the most reusable, but considering how useful certain items in the nether can be, it's a pretty big leg up to get there early. So give this a shot on your next blank world. And when you go through that nether portal, make sure to keep on the lookout for this block. Now I know that most of us would avoid quartz until we need things like comparators or daylight detectors, but in truth, even if you have no plans of building with it, it's still a good block to mine. Truth be told, nether quartz ore drops so much XP that when you don't have yourself a proper XP farm, this could be a great way to get yourself up into the higher levels. I mean, for just about 20 to 30 minutes of your time, you can go from 0 to level 30 just like that. And even though we're still doing this in the Nether, I think you'll still find this is much safer than having to kill the equivalent amount of mobs in the overworld. Before you spend a single iron ingot on making yourself armor, you should instead craft yourself a shield for the low price of a single iron ingot. Now, they require you to do more than armor to keep you protected. There's many cases where just holding up your shield can save you from a lot more than diamond armor would. And not just zombies and skeletons, but creepers also get nullified pretty hard by this too, making this a practical choice when you start out. Don't worry about getting yourself an iron sword. Instead, with just 3 stone and some sticks, a stone axe will do you much better. And if you're able to critical hit and time your attacks just right, you can easily kill off a lot of mobs. And partnered with that shield that you just crafted, now you'll be covered in both the offense and the defense, all without having to get more than a single piece of iron. And if you don't yet have the iron to make yourself a shield, then you can still put those 5 oak planks to use in a different way. I'm serious, but just crafting a boat, we can save ourselves from a ton of damage. For instance, if a hostile mob's coming towards you, just place down the boat and you'll be stuck in place, which is especially useful for things like slippery mobs like Enderman. Or if you don't have yourself a water bucket that you can clutch with, just place down the boat, row it off, and you'll be completely safe when you reach the ground. So even if you didn't spawn next to an ocean where you'd need one of these, I think you'll find it'll be just as useful on shore as it would have been on the water. If you're able to find food on land, great, but we're not always so lucky. So instead, you might have better chances of going to find yourself a river so that you can kill salmon. For one, they're super easy to kill. With just the right stone tool, you can kill one in one whack. And not to mention that even when you get rid of all the salmon inside of the river, when you come back later, they do respawn inside of the water. Oh, and they also have a small chance of dropping bone meal, which can itself be useful in finding yourself a food source that's renewable on land. And look, I'm not someone who likes seafood, but desperate times call for desperate measures. You should never craft mushroom stew ever again. Or should I say, you should never craft just mushroom stew, since by just adding in the right flour to that same crafting recipe, you can give yourself the right kind of suspicious stew to vastly change your outcome. Now granted, you gotta use the right one. I wouldn't use the lily of the valley, for example, but if you use a dandelion in the crafting recipe, that'll give you more saturation than most items in the game, only being surpassed by things like the enchanted golden apple. Or if you use an oxeye daisy, then that'll also give you a regeneration boost. And for a bonus tip, since these bowls don't stack in your inventory, an easy way around that's just to keep them in their raw materials. That way it only takes 4 item slots for 64. Don't waste your iron crafting shears, since in most cases, just spending 2 cobblestone on a hoe is a much better value. Not only can we also use these to break down leaves, but they can also help you gather certain things like hay bales much faster. And for a crop farm, you obviously need a hoe there, so even its intended use will be useful. And if you manage to eventually get fortune on your hoe, you're in an even better situation, since Minecraft doesn't apply durability damage when you break a crop with a tool. So we can massively increase your crop intake without massively decreasing your hoe's durability. Let's face it, when you're lucky enough to find yourself some diamond ore, you want to mine that sucker straight away. And I don't blame you, but you should reconsider how many of these diamonds you want to get right now. Since truth is, until you get the proper tools and enchantments, the best possible return that you're going to get on these is if you just grab 2 diamonds so that you can make yourself an enchanting table. And how do you get the obsidian? Well, luckily there's loot tables and things like ruined portals or village chests that are able to make up the difference even when you don't have a diamond pickaxe. And then when you're in that same village, you can grab the bookshelves from the librarian villager, and that way you'll be able to get fortune 3 on your pickaxe. And at that point, if you remember any diamonds that you left unmined down in the caves, you can still go down there and get a much better return on your item drops. I feel like lily pads are an often forgotten block in Minecraft, and more often than not, they just end up being a nuisance when you're trying to navigate through the swamp on a boat. But the truth is, if you happen to grab some of these and keep them in your inventory, then it's possible that if you come across a body of water, all you have to do is just sprint and jump and then place the lily pad underneath your feet, and you'll have yourself an easy way to scale a body of water regardless of how deep it is. Ever since 1.16, AFK fish farms have been nerfed. I'm not gonna deny that. But what they lack in treasure, they still have a lot to offer. For one, fish. But there's also plenty of experience points that you can get from fishing as well. And when it's this easy to build, there's really no reason to not have one of these in your world. Especially if you place it next to another place where you need to AFK. That way you're activating 2 farms at once, which alone would be a good deal, which is made all the better by how much food you're able to get from this method. Just waterlog a fence, place down a golden pressure plate on top, and then with an iron trap door and a note block placed like so, we'll have ourselves an infinite food farm, regardless of where you put this in your world. This Minecraft crop farm might look nice, but it's inefficient, since the way that it is in the game's code, you actually get better results from your crop farm if you plant them in rows like so. And honestly, we should have known that this was in the game from the beginning, considering the fact that village farms are planted this way as well. Maybe those Squidwards have more going on inside their head than just a big nose, since this could be really useful if you don't have bone meal yet to speed up the process in an auto farm. As soon as you start to get resources that you need to smelt, you should not be wasting time individually putting them into different furnaces. things. Instead, with the help of the chest boat, we're able to position one of these on top of a bed of hoppers so that it'll evenly disperse all of our items across all of these different furnaces. And just like that, we're smelting 9 times faster than we would in a regular smelter. Change them out for blast furnaces, it goes up to 18 times faster. And then by doing something like Puffing Fish HQ shows off in this design, we can have another chest minecart go around the outside and fill up all of our furnaces with fuel. And don't worry, they store the XP, so when you eventually go through and break all these furnaces, you're still gonna get the rewards that you want. There's really no downside to doing this. And if you're looking to find the iron to build that simple super smelter, your best bet isn't to find it down in the caves. Since of the ways that ores generate since the Caves and Cliffs update, you're actually gonna have pretty good luck finding this up in the mountains. And if I'm being honest, even if that was true, I wouldn't want to go dig inside of a mountain to find my iron. But the good news is, you don't even need to. From just mining iron on the surface of the mountains, you can end up with stacks of the stuff. And not to mention, it's a lot safer than heading down into a dark cave. You can also find coal up here too, just so you have something to smelt all that iron that you're getting. Instead of using chests, use barrels instead. Since, for one, they're cheaper to craft, they cost you 1 less plank for each recipe, and they're also great for small bases, since even if you have a solid block on top of them, you're still able to open them up. And while we can't double their size like we would a regular chest, it's also important to note that if you get a lot of these, they aren't rendered as entities like the rest of the chests, so they cause a lot less lag if you build yourself a barrel monster instead of a chest monster. Most players think of doors as just that, a door. But folks, there's so much more than that. Since in Java Edition, you can use these doors for some pretty important things. Like if you're underwater, you can place one of these down and have yourself a standing safe bubble of air. Or you can also place one of these down and use it to confuse hostile mobs that are coming towards you. For example, if you're in a cave and a skeleton starts shooting at you, place down the door and the mob's probably gonna lose track of you. And if you flip the door just right, we can actually use this to scale up a 2-block tall jump, helping you get out of a cramped space or up to a new one. And not to mention that you could use one of those doors to find yourself a ton of diamonds. See, with the way the caves generate in the new Minecraft updates, you can count yourself pretty lucky if you find an underwater cave like this down in the Deep Slate. Now, I know, they're annoying to traverse, but the truth is that diamonds are coded in such a way where they generate more if there's a non-air block around them. And folks, water counts the same way. So if you're able to see through the water just right, that'll let you easily track down all of the diamond ores that are generating underneath the water. And you don't have to worry about them falling into lava when they're literally submerged in water. Seems like a good deal to me. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?